So our procedure would be that we will kind of go into our panel mode, but we'll start with you with some more questions. I think our morning speakers have all gone to bed. Huber is not there anymore. He's probably having a nice Saturday evening in Germany. Keen is asleep, and maybe also Yamaguchi. So it will be you and Professor Tideman, who will be then the basically the panel speakers. But we'll start that off then with some questions for you further that I got here. One question is, why should CBDC end the use of paper cash? Just require paper cash acceptance. What's the big deal?
This has to do with the way that the Dutch central bank started to present their idea about how to start using CBDC. They said, well, we have to keep it very limited because it should not affect the banking business. It should be like it's a replacement of cash. And then they say, well, for instance, every citizen should be allowed to keep 3,000 digital euros on its account, and that's it. And then as physical cash disappears from the market, we can raise this to, for instance, 7,000. So they would put a limit on holding digital euros at 7,000, and it was related to the disappearance of physical cash from society. So this is their narrative about how they want to, what they want to do with CBDC. Our narrative was not to replace cash, but to replace bank money, and take 10 years in which in 10 years time, all bank deposits would be converted to save money outside of the banking system. And banks in 10 years needed to refinance themselves to be no longer depending on deposits for their financing. That was our vision. But this idea that banks should not be depending on deposits for their financing, this is not in the narrative of the central banks, because this is contrary to their business. Their business is to maintain parity between deposits and the currency, and not to end that. So, and ending this, that's something that politicians should do. They should say the idea of central banking and parity between deposits and the currency, that's no longer needed. We can arrange our money system in a much more safe way outside of the banking system. So we will put an end to this. The money stock will no longer be used as financing for banks. And we take, for instance, 10 years to transition, so that banks have 10 years to refinance themselves, to no longer be dependent on deposits as a form of their financing.
Okay. Quite some people ask about what was the issue in the first place to get safe bank.
To get what? Faith banks?
Safe banks. Safe banks. Yes. Is it a solution? So many people say, well, you got the FDIC here in the United States, and that keeps your deposits secure up till a certain amount. I think it's $250,000 since the prices. So again, what is it a solution for?
Yeah. So you could say, and this is also what the finance minister in the Netherlands says, well, we already have safe money because we have deposit guarantees. And then our response is that deposit guarantees is a very not cost efficient way to provide safe money. And it's also not a guarantee, because if the whole system goes down, the guarantees, which in the coffers at that point is not enough to cover. So how you will cover it, you don't know. It is not really covered. It's the idea that it's covered, but it isn't. But it's also it has a very bad incentive, because deposit guarantees make that banks can behave irresponsibly. And what the Scientific Council came up with after 3 years of study is that the idea that we have an safe alternative is that banks have to behave more responsibility. So putting an end to moral hazard. So the simple answer is deposit guarantees is not cost efficient. It's not really guarantees, but well, when the whole system goes down, you still have to see what will happen. And it's so not cost efficient, not really a guarantee. And there was a third thing, and I lost that. So for the moment,
All right.
but anyway, having safe money on safe accounts in a public depository, the cost of providing that system is only the cost of that administration. So you don't have to bail out banks to keep bank money flowing. If banks go down and you have money safe in a public depository, you don't have any additional costs to keep the money going apart from that administration. So you just know what the cost of that system is. And this system is not a cost at all, because you have to control the quantity of money. And the way to do that, in the way we envision it, is by taxing a surplus of money that flows to the public depository. And when people are, when money holders go to safety and put it in their safe account, then they will, from a certain threshold, be taxed for that. And the tax income flows to the government. So the government will make a profit. In any way you put it, the government will make a profit instead of lose money or have a very big risk of losing money by guaranteeing the risks that banks amass on their balance sheets.
Yeah, you. At this moment, let's get Professor Tideman also in and see if we can get a discussion going, maybe not necessarily between the two of you, but also I would say anybody else has a question for Dr. Tideman still, and I'll just open the floor for not necessarily stack system, because we'll do this for 15 minutes and then we'll go for a break. I'm going to gallery view. Anybody?
Albert, I asked one question to both of them, which is
Okay,
whether their proposals are compatible with, the same as, informed by Mcmillan's end of banking, because I heard parallels in both of it. And I would like each of them to speak to, I believe Edgar is familiar with end of banking. I don't know if Dr. Tideman is, but that would be very helpful.
Well, I'm not familiar with that particular item, but it does sound to me like it's probably other proposals to end fractional reserve banking and lending deposits. And I think that that is in principle a separable item, but it is compatible.
And from my point of view, it's compatible. It's also so that what we bring to the table is something which they don't address. We bring to the table the part which we call money, which is the embodiment of the general unit of value. And we put that outside of the banking system and in a limited quality. It's controlled, it's quantity controlled. But it also leaves room for privately issued stores of value, like we already have privately issued stores of value, but with this big difference that those privately issued stores of value are no longer guaranteed by the taxpayer. So there's no central bank anymore, there's no government guarantee. Everybody can issue all kinds of liquidity, all kinds of privately issued stores of money, but they are never at par with the currency, and they are not backed by state power. The state only backs the money which it issues itself. So you get two competing systems, one system of the free market and one system of the government. And if the government screws it up, everybody can go fully to those private forms of liquidity. But when the government does not screw it up, this means that the value of money is stable. Then you will have a coexistence. And at the private part of this, you will have stores of value, and then the privately issued stores of value. And then the question is, can we trust those stores of value? And then the end of banking, put something on the table that improves the trust that you can have in privately issued stores of value. So it's a compatible thing which protects the private part of the way we look at money and finance, the new monetary system in which you have a coexistence between public money and private forms of liquidity, but which are separated because the government is no longer supporting, guaranteeing privately issued forms of money.
I'm going to jump in here if I can, because I have a comment. I don't know if you can hear me.
We hear you. Is this
It's Herb. Both speakers,
Mr. White?
both speakers seem to have a political agenda of promoting more neoliberalism and free markets. Both speakers are using the word efficiency, and efficiency is nothing but a buzzword to try and get people to follow a particular political economic system. And I'm really quite concerned about both speakers using that. So if they could expand on why they think efficiency is such a good idea when nature does not, then maybe we could have a conversation about that.
You can see me. It's okay.
Let's have Mr. Tideman first, because he brought up the criterion of efficiency, which can be filled in different ways, of course. It all depends on the definition of efficiency.
Yes. I think of efficiency as what people want. I think that it's very frequent that efficiency involves government action. I think it's efficient to have roads. It's efficient to have predictable prices. It's efficient to have any number of public services. I don't equate efficiency with a small public sector. So perhaps we should talk about inefficiency. I think inefficiency is what you have when there's an obvious mess of some kind, that you have a runaway inflation or vast unemployment, or public spending on things that don't provide any value, or people discouraged from being productive because of heavy taxes. I think that a measure of efficiency can reasonably take account of the fact that money is more valuable to some people than others. It doesn't have to add up everybody's dollars as if they're equivalent to everybody else's dollars. So I don't think of efficiency as equivalent to the right-wing suggestion of a minimal government sector.
So maybe Herb's definition of efficiency was interpreted like market efficiency, while we are talking about systemic efficiency of the whole system, where you got the public sector, you got the banking sector, you got all of them included. Is that a fair way of making a difference?
Yeah, yes.
Using the term efficiency.
Yes, I think that there might be a tendency among some economists to equate efficiency with maximizing gross national product. But I think that a proper measure of efficiency takes account of all aspects of well-being, as well as the need for limited inequality.
Before then going to Edgar to talk about efficiency, was a good, and this ties into it. The question was, how would Dr. Tideman's system achieve universal benefits outside the market? Things like healthcare, maybe free tuition, daycare, public transportation, housing. I know those would fall under, you know, big programs, and you seem not to be a big enthusiast for that. But still, healthcare, free education, daycare, public transportation are systemic efficiencies. How would your system promote that kind of infrastructure that everybody can have advantage of?
Only in the most indirect way. By promoting general efficiency, it would provide people with more resources with which they could do the things that they want to do. But each of those things requires separate consideration.
Let's go to Edgar, efficiency. Edgar, do you have a political neoliberal agenda that you are promoting? Or maybe a nice Dutch agenda?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Bakunin. And he said, well, a liberal society with no social aspects that's unjustifiable, and a socialist society with no freedom, that's the dictatorship. And I think the problem that we have now with neoliberalism is that well, actually, we think we're living in a democratic society, but we don't. We are living in an oligarchy. And the money system is the root cause of that. The money system has subjected the government to a lower place in the feudal order, the feudal financial order, which whereas the great democracy show as a make-believe thing about democracy, but actually there's an oligarchy. And this is based in the debt-based money system, which makes the government a servant to the financiers. So what we are talking about is breaking this system, breaking this feudal system, and going to a system where you can get coexistence between a free society, a liberal society, you could say, but also a market-oriented society, and a government, and the government is not subjected to this market society, but it's inert. It's not a servant of that thing, but it's the referee. It has to set standards, be a strong party that can set standards, but not be a big player in this market. Let the players play with a strong referee. That's the vision. That's the political vision behind it, in which you can have a social basis in which people help each other, get a social basis, and on top of a social basis, you can create a free society. And then you have a small government, but a powerful government that can coexist with an honest free society, and not a dishonest free society like we have. And we have now the nightmare of Bakunin, in which it's the strong are free and the rest is actually a slave. And it's an oligarchic system. And the idea is to get coexistence between a government, which could be a democratic system, which is strong enough to remain small and provide freedom to everybody. And also certainty about essential needs. So the social part should be included as well.
I think
That's-
if we were
that's
in
it.
person now, that would be a standing ovation to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and somebody is saying, thank you for calling out the oligarchy.
I want to jump in here because that is actually pure libertarianism and public choice theory. And I'm very concerned about that. An economist by the name of Ken Zimmerman compared Buchanan getting the Nobel Prize in 1986 for his public choice theory as giving Hitler a prize for population control. So I'm extremely opposed to some of the comments that I've just heard here.
Yeah, I think you're throwing in a lot of terms and ideas that we need probably some further digesting to make that stick. I would say from my own point of view, what Edgar is saying seems to be based on political science findings. First of all, the finding that most policies that are implemented in the West are policies that the oligarchy wants, and the policies that the people want, but the oligarchy doesn't want, hardly have a chance. Maybe a little more in Europe than in the United States, because in Europe there's a little more of a social democracy going than in the United States. But I see Edgar shaking his head like,
That's over.
probably saying
That's over.
it's a similar system.
Guys, this has been wonderful, but let's get to lunch because we need to be back, I would say, in 45 minutes, or let's say 1:55. 1:55 would be the time for Howard to give us his song. And then at 2:00, we should have a special guest from Positive Money who will go over similar central bank workings with much less time than Edgar has given us. Edgar has given us a full round table of it. And but we'll catch up with England at 2:00, and at 1:55 we'll see everybody. If this video is helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for new video notifications. Please consider donating at monetary.org/donate. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at AMI Monetary or on our website